Matt, how's it going?
I'm good, thank you, Seve. We've got a new studio today.
We've got a new studio. We're chatting out of the 43 office. 43 is an awesome VC with 3 great partners. So definitely check out 43 if you're a startup looking for investment, or reach out to me, and then I can refer you. I'll look good. No, I don't get a bonus for that though. What's up?
Do you have a referral code or?
I don't have a referral code, and maybe not necessarily the best track record for referrals yet. I mean, come on, guys.
Who have you referred so far?
Who got denied? Yeah, I'll. I
thought you were going to say it was Elizabeth Holmes was a good buddy of mine, and then there was this guy. He started. What you might have heard of them was like FPC. No, what was the FTC? No.
Oh yeah. FTX. Sam Bankman-Fried.
Anyway, so far it's 2 for 2, but
what's funny though is one of the startups. I shouldn't say anything, but actually I won't say anything. Anyway, come to me. A great track record. I'll give you a referral, or just apply on your own because what does my referral mean?
Well, thanks for hooking us up with the hosting today.
Absolutely.
It's nice to be here.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful office.
So Matt, you were just telling me you got your motorbike license.
I did finally again. I had it for many years in Australia, and then a couple of years in Germany, and then I moved over here and I went, wow, you guys drive like crap.
Oh, really? So the motorbike helps with that? Is that right?
No. I mean, like it's an inherently more dangerous vehicle than a car, right? And so.
And there's more trucks in America. I don't know. Does Australia have more trucks?
No, not compared to the States. The cars are typically at least a bit smaller.
Okay.
We don't have like F-150s.
Does Australia strike kind of a middle ground? Because I was in Europe, and the cars are smaller.
The rest of the world, the cars are smaller.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on par with the rest of the world with reasonable cars.
No, Australia's still a bit bigger, but we're not quite as nuts as the States.
Okay, so occupying the middle ground.
Yeah. The people, the houses, and the trucks or utes would typically call them.
Can I say something very American? I like a big car. When I see the Cybertruck, I go, yeah.
You go, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah. No, I like it. I feel like big car, you can feel safe. It's like a mobile home, It's a mobile home, but it's not a mobile home,
Yeah, I see. This is the thing. I get the convenience. I get that it's like nice to just be able to leave as much stuff in the back of it as you want,
or in the frunk of
the front of it. It's great in a lot of ways, but there are aspects to it that are typically terrible for everyone else about you having a big car. And this is it's a perfect example of why we need government, period. Not just like big government, small government, whatever.
So that people don't build giant trucks.
Yeah. Actually, though, see, it's funny because in the States, of course, politics very hot right now. Not something I intend to get deeply into.
Politics are always hot. I don't know if honestly, I feel like politics might be cold right now. I feel like because nobody really knows what to think. Do people know what to think? Leave a comment. I'm gonna stop talking about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't leave too spicy comments, please. No, but it's interesting, and you get this everywhere. But you end up with more progressive, community-minded people in cities because the density demands community orientation and collaboration tightly between people.
Right.
And being out in a rural area demands this rugged individualism. If you're, even Australia, if you're living like 100 k's from someone else, having this mentality that like, we should do everything as a community and consult everyone before we make a decision is inherently terrible because you get nothing done and you won't be able to fend for yourself effectively. And the city counter, if you have that individualistic mindset, you're not going to be able to collaborate with the density of people that you have in front of you.
We're also more dependent in a city. Like, I don't know how to grow a carrot,
No, dependent
or
and specialized.
Or other vegetables.
Dependent or specialized, depending on how you look at it, right? And I think that only a few countries have the luxury of large or the ability to host large vehicles because they have enough space to build bigger roads, car parks, single family homes with a garage so you can actually garage an F-150, right? And Europe and Asia, the density of people in and Eurasia in general is so high that you just couldn't justify the infrastructure for it.
Yeah.
So it's really only Australia, Canada, the US, and South Africa that have the right population densities to justify, Land Cruisers are the Australian and South African like biggest thing you'll typically see around, or like the big F-150 trucks you get over here in America.
Yeah. I feel like do you think that big cars are better or worse for autonomous transport? Like,
ooh, interesting.
It's like a new, because I don't know. It's kind of an interesting sort of question, right? Okay, so just like a couple points, like bigger car, better crumple zones. So maybe people are more willing to trust an autonomous car because you're a little bit safer in it anyway, just because it's bigger. But maybe small cars are just better for more density. I don't know. Like, how do autonomous cars even change this equation?
So the problem with the car size debate, and the reason the government, it's a perfect and reasonable place for the government to be involved and regulate the size of car that you can drive. This is 100% should be done, is because you personally only stand to benefit by having a bigger car because you personally are safer. But the net safety of everyone on the road, in sum, is worse when everyone has bigger cars, right? And so with autonomous vehicles, what does this equation look like? Well, actually, from what we know so far, based on all of the results of Waymo and even Tesla, self-driving is safer than humans driving.
Right.
And so you actually don't need the bigger crumple zone yourself for your own sake. But you could argue that unlike a human, the behavior of a self-driving car is not likely to avoid, for example, a big rear-end collision as effectively. Like, it's not going to have, you as a human, you see someone in your mirrors coming and you're willing to basically run into one barrier to avoid being smashed by them.
Right.
You're willing to do these things.
Yeah. So
as long as you notice.
So actually it is a huge difference. The safety equation is way, way different now with autonomous car. Like, people so it's okay to have bigger cars in an autonomous setting because there's less risk posed to pedestrians and stuff like that.
I think from a pure safety perspective, yes, like in a large autonomous car, you're not creating the same safety impact for everyone else involved. And you are mitigating the safety risk that others by driving large cars are causing to you. That said, I do think small is the way to go here, because what we know about cars already is that typically it's like 1.5 occupants per trip is like the average car, or 1.5 occupants is like the average car occupancy. It's just over 1, but really not so much. And you can't really get below 1 until you have a self-driving car, right?
Yeah.
And so, but with a self-driving car, you can have 0 people in the car while it's shuttling between 2 trips or the likes of that. So yeah, it definitely seems smaller is better because it's basically, yourself point to point, maybe 2 of you sometimes.
Yeah. So cars are, they almost have like they almost accommodate, the size almost accommodates like a minivan and like stuff to carry 8 people. But in reality, in the future, usually it's going to be 1 person. So you don't really need all that space.
On average, it might even be like 0.8. I sincerely hope it's not. But you can imagine, like, now you can't get below 1.
It could be less than 1.
Yes, because
wow.
For the first time ever, you can have an empty vehicle moving itself around. That's the point.
So there's an alternative to this.
Yeah.
There's autonomous motorcycles.
No. God, no.
That's like your factor of trust has to go up by 10, and it was already really high for autonomous vehicles. But it kind of fixes this problem.
It helps.
You could fit so many of these on the road, and you might be able to prove at some point. It's crazy because I think somebody is working on an autonomous motorcycle, but it's not like it's not like making the news all over the place yet or exposed to people. But you might be able to make an argument at some point that an autonomous motorcycle is safer than a human driver. So it's safer than taking an Uber is an autonomous motorcycle.
Oof.
And assuming Uber's still around, like
then they're similar.
How do I get back to the days of $3 rides without all the people in my car? You know?
Oh, well, you just need a new Uber to pop up and get highly capitalized. You know, we need them to raise like $1 billion. And then they spend all of that VC money driving you around for free. It's how that happened the first time too.
Yeah. We'll never see those days again. I mean, Uber Pool briefly almost made it make sense, but I don't know if we'll see a Waymo Pool or anything like that, because we all kind of want to be left alone.
I think. See, this is the thing for people who aren't in San Francisco. I've said this before. I'll say it again. The Waymos charge more because it is a premium experience, and not just because it's novel. The novelty wears off so quick because it's a good driver, right? You're like, oh, it's cool. The car hasn't, but then all of a sudden, it's just like being on a train or a bus, but all by yourself, and it's comfortable and calm.
Yeah, I heard somebody on Twitter say, when you're in a Waymo, it's like your space, but when you're in an Uber, it's their space. Yeah. So, and I definitely feel that way where I get into a Waymo and I'm relaxed. It's almost like finding your seat on a train. It feels very similar to that, where you get there, you kind of set out all your stuff. Maybe you take your shoes off, right? A little smelly. I would never take my shoes off in an Uber. So maybe that's the test. Can you take your shoes off?
I did take my shoes off in the recording studio for everyone.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
I thought you were making fun of me.
No, I wasn't. I didn't even notice. Yeah. I saw some VC backed startup. I think it might have been browser based or something. We're talking about how they take their shoes off before they enter the office, which is like a little bit of a San Francisco thing, because I think it's like
it's dirty on the streets.
Yeah, but it's kind of like it does to me like signal there's like a stage of a company where you can do that, and there's like a strength of a culture where people do that, and at some point it breaks. Once one person starts wearing shoes around, once they don't like respect that policy, everybody kind of starts to do it, because the floors get like the floor cleanliness just goes back to standard levels.
It goes back to dirty street levels.
Yeah, exactly. Basically pretty close to it. I don't know. Do you guys did you guys take your shoes off at atopile?
No. Well, no, actually sorry. Did we have to? No. Did we? Yeah, frequently.
Yeah. You guys kind of had an upstairs and downstairs portion, so I don't know if you
split
had
as well.
ones.
It didn't really stop me too much. The only thing is downstairs there was some slippery bits and pieces, so if you're just there in your socks,
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you had a lab too, actually.
Yeah.
A lab is a good reason to wear shoes.
Yeah. The other thing is, see, I invested in a full set of Darn Tough socks. And you're from the Northeast, so you're familiar with Darn Tough. For people who aren't, it's a brand from Vermont that make really high quality, durable socks. You know, we've all heard this thing in science class.
Is that what you're wearing right now?
I am. Yeah, shout out. So,
do you show it to the camera? Show your feet, please.
So the thing is, they make high quality, durable socks, and they stand behind them. They're lifetime warranted. If you ever get a hole in them, they'll replace them. But it means that, like other things, like, I don't know, stepping on something sticky and getting it stuck in the bottom of the sock and not washing it out, and all those things, is I treat these items not with necessarily more respect, but with more care, because I consider this a lifetime sock subscription for one set of socks, because whenever they get a hole, I replace them in hopefully 5-10 years, and then I'll do it again and again. And so, you spend $20 on a pair of socks. It seems kind of insane, but hopefully I don't have to buy socks again in my life, and they're comfy and they're nice. But it means you don't want to get them too grubby either.
People aren't willing to spend money on some things that they use all the time. Like socks are an example. You're wearing that all day, almost every day. So maybe it's worth a little bit more. Pencils are another example. Yeah. When you see $100 pencil, what's your reaction, right? Are you thinking like, oh, you should just use the commoditized one? It's kind of a weird thing to think about, because the few people who use pencils anymore.
See, that I think that mentality comes from there are a couple of ways to price goods, right? So there's pricing up to what the market can bear, right? As one mechanism of pricing goods, and that's kind of what you're describing here, of saying, well, the market could bear $100 pencil if you justify it in XYZ way, and then there's pricing down to the manufacturing cost. It's like, what are the cost of goods here?
I'd pay $100 for a pencil, but it would have to record, what I wrote. I think people have tried do this. Like, put
Yeah.
a little accelerometer on the pencil.
Yep.
I don't know if it's ever worked well enough, or like if I don't know. I don't know if it's really made an impression. But it's a good idea. I mean, I don't use pencils anymore. Do you use pencils?
It's funny you mention it because I just bought myself a very cheap, granted, mechanical pencil 4 or 5 days ago on Amazon because I was like, damn, I'm sick of using these crappy pencils. Exactly this.
Yeah.
Just to sketch, because that's the thing. Like, you can communicate so much, so effectively with a diagram and maths.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, you can write this out and you can CAD and all sorts of things. But if you can't sketch as an engineer, I personally think that you're up shit creek.
Yeah, absolutely. We had to take. Did you take a sketching class in college?
I did
Have
take
to
a
sketch
sketching
out some
class.
stuff. Yeah, that's like one of those things that's kind of valuable to be able to put your ideas to pen and paper,
Yeah.
right? And it's a big problem for AI right now too, because it's really hard to describe some things
Yes.
without a little bit of a visual.
It's hard to articulate concepts if you can't do things spatially.
Yeah.
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 At
Absolutely.
least there are some concepts. It's interesting you bring this up as well, because one of the modes I found really useful is to be able to make a sketch and then take a photo of that and give it to AI, ChatGPT, or Gemini these days as well is okay at it, and say, like, here is a diagram of X, or here is a basis for something, or I want to generate an image, here's the skeleton of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it does, the results are immaculate compared
Really?
to what if you just give it the prompt and you're like, I want you to generate an image description versus I want to generate an image, here is like literally a stick figure.
Yeah.
Terrible. But it gives it pose information, for example.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's crisp and clear instead. And I think that AI is an incredible litmus test of how you should communicate with other people, because it's got all the context in the world, almost quite literally, right? So
Right. So basically, you should be able to describe your idea, sketch out something, and then have like basically that fully formed version for AI. And if the AI can't figure out what you're doing, you are not communicating well at this point.
the AI is only going to understand it as well as your average off the street person. Like, if it's your best mate and you've been talking about this idea for months, then like, yeah, sure, of course they're going to have more context.
Right.
But it's a good test to see how crisp and clear.
Yeah.
And the other one along similar lines that I found with advanced voice mode. Have you used this much from OpenAI?
Yeah. I've used advanced voice mode a lot. I've actually been watching a D&D series on a little known network called Dropout TV.
Okay.
And I was like, be my dungeon master advanced voice chat.
No way.
And it sounded like be pretty good. I couldn't commit enough to it's actually a big commitment. I didn't realize, but yes, it's amazing. The inflections, the pausing, the uncertainty in its voice.
It added yesterday. I asked it because I was curious. I'm curious of getting my pilot's license. And it said, how much does it cost to get a pilot's license in the Bay Area? Was my question for it. And it went, that varies a lot depending on a lot of factors, including I'm like, what? What do you mean? You knew exactly what you were going to say.
Yeah.
It's doing it for our sake. It's like it's saying please or thank you or praising it. But it's really incredible where it's got to.
I wonder if there's any value in communication of putting in ums. Does it help you process? If I go, Matt, the thing is, or something like that, does it help you? Does it add gravity to what I'm saying or something like that?
I think it does. I think it does. You know, in I, Robot, I believe the movie was Will Smith. Is that the one?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So, a long time ago, maybe 20 years or something.
Remember the robot winks? He teaches it like, oh, it's a sign of trust, and the robot winks at him as the sign of like, trust me, I'm going to help you save the world.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's you could argue it's one of those uncommunicative, like irrelevant things, and he kind of dismisses the wink when he tries to explain it to the robot in the first place.
Yeah.
It's such a human thing, but I think that the tonality, the uncertainty, it's all part of the culture. And it helps build rapport and trust in a way that if we're actually going to adopt these more widely than just us tech bros, it's imperative. So I think it's all really interesting.
Very interesting. What kind of, so you used advanced voice mode to do the pilot's license. Have you found other uses for it? Because The only time I struggle to find places to use advanced voice mode unless my hands aren't free. When my hands aren't free, it's very obvious where to use it. But the way you interact with it, it feels difficult to me in a lot of ways. Like I would love to have it always on when I'm in the car with my girlfriend, just so that I could like pull it in every once in a while.
I'd love to have it on with a small stream of its consciousness in front of us now. Because if you could have it during a conversation and we're talking about current events and you're like, yeah, and what's the population of XYZ? And like you're just talking about it, it comes up as you're going.
Absolutely.
That would be incredible.
Yeah. Or like we say, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but there's so much room for a really, really good piece of podcasting software.
Yeah, please.
There's all the logistics of setting it up, but also just like when we're talking about things, like if I'm like, oh, what's O3's current pricing or something like that relative to this, it should just be kind of information that's up there for us.
It should be.
And then there's also the cutting and all of this.
The way I use it today, though, is I can think much more clearly if I'm talking than if I'm typing or even handwriting. I guess I don't know if you'd call me an auditory learner, but I do typically prefer audiobooks as well. But I think it does free up your mind for other things, and I think it's the basis of my language at least. And so I'll pace and I'll put on headphones, and if I'm like going to write a paragraph or an investor email or a mission statement or like some like highly edited piece of text, I'll just pace with it on and say like, hey, I need to produce X document. Here's like the rough ideas I have. Help me like tease out the fundamental concepts of like what I care about this the most. And it'll ask you some questions and then you articulate those and it'll say something like this. And you're like, no, that's crap. What about this instead? And you can riff with it, which is incredible. And that riffing it's a way to get from a 90th percentile document up to a 99th or just
absolutely.
The best stuff.
Writing out thoughts helps so much, and speaking thoughts and having a thought partner is probably understated because it's so rare to have a thought partner who really has knowledge on everything you're doing. Even most of the time when I go and I seek advice from people, I do feel like they don't quite have enough context to help me out. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they bring in that foreign piece of knowledge that's so important.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's not there. That's super interesting. Are you using these O3 models or anything like that to help you out? Because sort of like, I guess the news lately is O3 is now cheaper from the OpenAI API than GPT-4o.
No way.
So it's now super, super cheap.
Yeah.
Which means I think we're going to see super intelligence everything is so cheap now. Even the Gemini, it's crazy how cheap everything except Anthropic is.
They might need to address that.
Yeah. So something we started doing with tscircuit is we have a little AI review button, and all it does is like basically pipes your code into O3 and it's like, is there anything wrong? And then it tells you. And I found so many mistakes this way because O3 is so friggin' smart. But I don't know. What's like stuff you're using it for, if anything? Is it your preferred model?
The thing is, I think for what I've been doing at least, become much less picky between the OpenAI models. I'll basically end up picking like Gemini 2.5 Pro Flash, whatever.
Yeah.
Like the top end model from them, or I'll kind of just flippantly fall between 4.0 and O3 because for what I use ChatGPT for, it's my open-ended question. I don't have a dedicated tool for this sort of catch-all other bucket.
Yeah.
And for that specific case where results are less testable in a lot of ways, I haven't been able to discern recently a significant difference in the quality of those answers.
Yeah.
So, which is, is it good enough? Yeah, that is my metric of good enough. And then for specific tasks, of course, like coding, you have, dedicated tools.
Yep. It's getting harder to tell them apart at the high end. 4.0 and O3 are often indistinguishable now, which is kind of
great.
Crazy. Yeah.
Which actually brings me back to the spatial reasoning we were discussing before,
yeah.
right? So one mode of communicating spatial information is a sketch, right?
Yeah.
But And I think this is so interesting because they say something like only half of people can do this. And for the half of us that can, and you're an engineer as well, so I assume this is part of you, but you can close your eyes or even open your eyes and in your head picture a 3D scene and manipulate that scene as you wish.
Yeah.
You're able to do this, yes.
Yeah.
Most engineers can, I find. But apparently half of people can't do this.
Really?
Apparently about half of people do not think in their heads spatially like this. Can't vividly, literally picture what you're describing.
Right. So basically, society has the interior designer people and the others. I don't.
Maybe, but I actually don't even necessarily know it limits you in profession in that way. Perhaps you can be just as capable in any given profession, plausibly, maybe not mechanical engineering without it, but and maybe a really niche couple of other things. Because like interior design, for example, if you got really good at interior design, and now I'm not, so I can't comment too heavily. But if you got good at it by understanding color theory, for example, do you need to pause and say, well, if I shuffle this chair to the left a little bit, imagine what that would think like, and you rub your temple. Like, are you testing it in your head or are you testing it in reality? And if you understand the theory well enough, do you need to?
And the tools do help a lot now too. I tweeted about LLM spatial reasoning recently, and so I'm pulling up that tweet. But so I have my phone screen recorded, but I'm gonna have to show you because we don't have the normal thing. Yep. But I'll read it first. Increasing LLM spatial reasoning capabilities for automatic layout. XY coordinates are an ineffective compressed spatial representation. They're not good for spatial reasoning.
Amen, brother. However,
you can create verbose constraints and force an LLM to fix consistencies, and that's more effective. So I'll give you this tweet.
Yeah.
So this, I haven't completely tested out this theory, but I think the problem is we're not really like giving data in a way that humans semantically think about spatial data to the LLMs. So we think a chair is against a table. It's not at 50-50, the coordinate. Yeah.
And the other part of, this distinction, so maybe if I'm to describe this purely for audio's sake a little bit more, one of the things is there's a red square and a blue square. And when you're trying to articulate what they're doing with one another, redundant verbose encoding is something like the red square is to the right of the blue square. It is roughly 10 units below the blue square, that type of thing.
Right.
And so you're saying these are sort of redundant and relative descriptions, just like you're saying with the chair and the table. And the other thing you get out of this is it's atomic, right? And so if you say the chair is in front of the table and the cushion is on the chair, right?
Yep.
It's just as a statement, right? Now, this is something you can picture. Now, if I move that chair, now you're like, oh, let's pull the chair out from underneath the table. Well, in your mind, the cushion is still on the chair. It moved with it.
Right.
That action is atomic. We understand that the distinct action of moving the chair does not necessarily affect the rest of the bounds on that system. Whereas with the XY coordinates, it must. Yeah. It must also change the XY, Z, in that case, coordinates of that cushion. And that means you're stuffed in the encoding sense. You have to recompute the whole encoding.
So this is like, to me, this is a big missing piece of the LLM equation right now. A lot of people are like, if you want an LLM to generate an SVG, it has to output a lot of X and Y.
Yeah.
But if it outputs constraints or sort of like, oh, this is to the left of this is inside of this, etc. So it outputs all these different things, and they can be redundant, but they all must agree, which gives you validation. Yes. Then I think you can get better, much better spatial reasoning.
You can. We did this in atopile.
Oh, no way. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more.
So, yes, this is exactly how it works. And it's also about the way it works in CSS, which is some of the inspiration. So there's layout hints, and you literally say, left of, right of, that type of thing in an earlier version of atopile, although I think there's some consideration to re-implement such things. The other thing in this exact space is constraints. And so when you are designing a circuit, you provide an equation that constrains, I don't know, you've got a voltage divider, you're adding a constraint and saying the total resistance of this voltage divider is the sum of the two resistances.
Yep.
Very, very simple. But when you're talking about adding additional constraints, they must all be satisfiable together is the technical term, right? You've got satisfiability, which is incredible. And what you do then is you have the computer solve the number crunching of this set of equations.
Right.
And the LLMs instead, or the humans, right, if you're the one writing code, get to think in the relationships between things. Those equations, the top level stuff, or that you need the total resistance has to be pretty high, and by pretty high I mean somewhere between 100k and a mega ohm, for argument's sake. Right? You get to think in these plastic terms, and then let it actually derive what that materially resolves to.
100%. I think these constraint systems are a major piece of the system. I think the other maybe understated piece, and this is again not super proven out by me, but I also tweeted about this, although I don't think I have an interesting graphic. I think essentially like templates or matching to existing known patterns is going to be really, really big. So if you have like a USB port, a microcontroller, all the accessory components, and I don't know, an accelerometer, and they're all roughly the same size, that's a solved configuration. So yes, we could try to build the perfect algorithms for AI to automatically lay this out or whatever. We could build constraint systems for that, or we could do what an electrical engineer would do, which is probably go look at a reference design and go, those placements are good, great.
I'll copy and tweak.
I'll copy and tweak. So, I think this is a very understated thing, that all of these things need to work sort of together. And I think you'll get to a really good system. You have a constraint system, you have the LLM, which is the design intent or sort of like the purpose layer. What do you actually want at the end? And then sort of a templating loading system.
I think we'll see this across the board. It's really interesting when thinking about this in the terms of 3D design as well, and mechanical engineering, really. Because the way, when people think of mechanical engineering, naive people, either straight out of university or in fields adjacent, they think that you spend all day long in CAD, right? And specifically by CAD, I mean, they think that you spend all day modeling, right? Designing basically bounding geometry is what we'd call it technically. Whereas actually what you end up doing a whole bunch of the time is working out how your part can be manufactured, right? You can work out how you're either doing research or calculations, equations, requirements, derivation, or trying to resolve all of those things, into a 3D design. And then actually when you get to the modeling tools, the way these tools are built is basically a set of really complex functions that you run sequentially to end up with your part. And when you're CADing, you can think of it in some sense as writing a flow diagram like program, right? Or a sequentially stepped program that ends up with the component having been derived from all those constraints. And I think if you flip this around a little bit, one of the ways that I've seen just the best engineers think about this is they'll understand from the get-go how they're going to manufacture. In fact, everyone has to do this eventually, but the best engineers do it innately. Is figure out how their part's going to be manufactured. They say, I'm going to CNC machine this, and I want to do it on a 3-axis machine, and I know that from the get-go. And you can argue that's an arbitrary constraint. It is. But if you have the intuition, this is where the AI comes in, right, to make these intuitive guesses or to use heuristics to derive them. You can say, look, 3-axis machines are cheap. We're going to end up with some dedicated custom fixturing and tooling to make this easy, and we're going to have a couple of stations. And I want to machine this part, and I think 2 or 3 orientations, right? And what that means is that you start with there, and then knowing how that machine moves and can act and can reach, you can work out what material you remove from a block, because it's an inherently subtractive process, CNC machining. And so No, your job as a mechanical engineer is not sitting there doodling and CAD about what part will work. It's working out how to take a block of metal and pairing that back to the minimum remaining piece.
Yeah, for sure. And also considering what's already manufactured, like what can we use?
What can you use off the shelf? Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting because it is maybe a little bit different than electronics to some extent. There's definitely some similarities to that, but I guess we don't think about fabrication or manufacture maybe as much.
No. Far from it.
It's more standard. There's less, like we talk about the tolerances that one can achieve with different fabricators, but at the end of the day,
they're pretty standardized.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if all this development in robotics and stuff like that might change. So robot arms are huge.
Yeah.
Right now.
Big business. Everyone loves arms.
Everybody loves arms. Everybody loves humanoids too.
Yeah.
But my favorite emerging type of startup is the arms in a box startup.